The Contrast of Human and Wild Predators by Schuyler Watkins. For a while now, I've contemplated the theory that humans should know better than to kill animals, a stance often taken by anti-hunters. The point being to leave the wildlife alone and just eat plants and gain our protein source from synthesized vegetables. At times, they make an enticing argument, and I've caught myself seemingly disappointed in my desire to kill and eat. Am I wrong? When looking at humans versus wild predators, we can easily understand that from a rudimentary position we are both one and the same. Forward-facing eyes, a drive to chase what runs, and a stomach that desires the meat for survival. However, through evolution, we as humans have been blessed with the attributes of intellect, compassion, and empathy, traits not found in wild predators. This is the argument made from the anti-hunting groups as to why we should know better. Being an open-minded individual, I've really tried to understand this reasoning. I want to do what is right for the animals, but I also think we fail to remember that we are animals too. It is here that we can begin to understand the contrast between humans and wild predators, and here that we can break down our role in the environment. For the past week, I've watched a lone squirrel dance back and forth between the leaves and the hackberry trees out of my office window. Just like the resident bobcats and coyotes that call my property home, I find squirrel to be a delicious source of quality protein and most definitely have a desire to grab the 410 and get the cast iron hot for a morning meal. Nevertheless, I have that attribute of intellect, and I understand that he is the lone squirrel in his environment. If I were to selfishly make him my meal, there would be no other squirrel in this micro-ecosystem to take his place. For that reason, I must protect his existence until he can find a mate and propagate a sustainable population in our area. I must be a steward for his species. From the standpoint of the coyotes and the bobcats, the singularity of the squirrel does not matter. For them, he is just an easy meal and a forgotten morsel by the end of the day. They haven't the ability to understand the taking of his life will remove the resource from the environment. Therefore, eliminating any further opportunity to harvest that source of protein. Intellect and stewardship is not in their realm of reasoning. This is where we differ. As the smartest predator on Earth, it is my job to protect the decreasing numbers of some species and manage the increasing number of others. I have been chastised by the opposition for hunting wild predators in which I will not eat, but reality shows us that this happens daily in the animal kingdom and in turn is a necessity. The circle of life can always be tied back to food, but each individual aspect isn't necessarily directly related to a food source. The act of managing an overpopulated number of coyotes in an individual area isn't a direct action of feeding myself, but preventing them from the overharvest of a protein source we both need is obviously correlated to preserving a consumable species. It is not the coyote's fault that the human species continues to develop communities and infrastructure, causing a reduction of wild animal living space. But it does place a species with no reasoning in a cramped environment. As the living space becomes smaller, the hunting becomes easier, and a species with no reasoning has the ability to wipe out their own food sources without regard for their future. I have presented this argument before, and was told by the opposition that I didn't understand how evolution worked, and that the coyotes would learn to hunt less through a period of reasonable time. My rebuttal to that would be that humans are developing at a much faster rate than natural evolution occurs, and therefore, by the time the coyotes were to evolve, the food source would have already vanished. I agree with the ideology that we shouldn't kill just to kill, but I also understand, however archaic it may seem, that we, the human predator, must use our intellect to do what is right by the wildlife. It is our job to manage the animals and lands of which they reside. It is also our right to partake in the consumption of the species along the way. After all, we are predators by nature, and meat is the ultimate food source. It is often said that lions are the king of the jungle, but in all reality, humans are, and for that, we must remain accountable and responsible in our stewardship for all species, us included.